No matter who is ultimately sworn in as governor, one thing is for sure, this state is one in crisis. Here with Bill Curry, Corey Brinson. Let's look at some of Connecticut's problems right now. Off the bat, again, $3.5 billion. You mentioned during the break, you had some solutions. How does the state, again, cut into that briefly? How do you eliminate that? What kind of programs can be cut? What kind of revenue can be brought in?
First of all, you have to start by understanding how we spend our money now. And the focusing on state employees and their compensation is understandable, but it's a very small part of our budget when you step back and look at it.
So where would you start?
In comparison to what we spend on health care, what we spend servicing our debt for all the money we borrowed in good times when we shouldn't have been borrowing, and that now crowds out other possibilities of public investment in a very sad way. But you've got interest in the debt, you've got health care, you've got a pass through to cities and towns on education and other stuff, and then you've got help to the poor and the elderly through the state share of Medicaid. And so you could eliminate all the employees and just turn the entire state into a ghost town, and you'd still be looking at a problem.
Where would you cut?
So I start first of all with health care.
Okay.
And that's the biggest single item in the budget, and that's why you start there. When I was comptroller, I proposed opening up the state employee health care plan to create a large pool here in Connecticut. It passed both chambers in the last legislature, but fell one vote short of overriding the governor's veto. A Democratic governor can walk in and put on the table for the country to see, do something historic in his first month, and open up the state employee health care plan to small businesses, to the self-employed. That'll be like the biggest tax cut ever given to small businesses in this state by lowering their monthly premiums, and it will increase our efficiency and our ability to negotiate lower costs for ourselves. That's the first move on health care, and remember, health care is the biggest item he's got to tackle.
All right, I'm going to stop you right there. Corey.
I'd give you two cuts and a revenue booster. First of all, Department of Corrections. State of Connecticut spends more on the Department of Corrections than it does on the University of Connecticut, Central, Eastern, Western, Southern.
$715 million a year,
yes,
right?
All 12 state community colleges combined, we spend more on corrections than we do on higher education in the state of Connecticut. There's a lot of nonviolent offenders that shouldn't be in jail, that cost us a lot of money. No one's talking about that. That's something that has to change. I'd also cut some of the benefits that we're currently offering to new employees that come into the state of Connecticut system. Some of the pensions and the pay are not in line with the private sector, and I think that we're offering benefits that we just can't afford. In terms of a revenue booster, something that no one talked about much during the campaign season was Connecticut loses a lot of young professionals. We spend a lot of money educating young people here, but we don't keep them here in Connecticut, and they end up going off to out of state, and they pay taxes, and they build families, and they live somewhere else. Who's going to be the future taxpayers of Connecticut? And that's something we got to work on now.
There are ways to shrink the bureaucracy. Even in bad times, we've had about a 5% attrition rate, meaning the number of employees who leave because of retirement, death, moving out of state. If you have more flexibility in management to redeploy the existing, the remaining employees, rather, you can begin to shape that bureaucracy. We do have too much top-heavy management and not enough service deliverers. And so that can change over time. But this deal where we're always preaching that the way out of this is to bring people's wages down, to bring their salaries down. Unions and public employees were a floor. They're not just something for people to envy when times get tough. It's been a floor under wages in the private sector. This was the first economic expansion up until this recession in American history in which the economy got bigger and the middle class got smaller. You'd better be sensitive to an income policy in this state if you want to bring this economy back.
All right, quick hits, guys. You're doing a good job of this. Achievement gap. I want one solution real quick. Highest achievement gap in America between white students and their black and brown peers or among them. Quick solution. Corey Brinson.
More fathers should go to sleep in the same house as their kids, because I'm sure in families that do, the kids do better.
Straight to the families.
Straight to the families.
Bill Curry, quick one.
The quickest is to end the de facto segregation of our cities and to have economic revitalization, including property tax reform.
That's your
I've
baby.
always cared about, because you can't have people living in a world that tough and succeeding in the classroom.
It's a solution government can't solve. It's one that's got to start at home in the families. African American families, 70% of kids are born out of wedlock. That's a radical difference change from the 1940s and 50s, where the vast majority of African American families had children produced in the marriage. It makes a difference. Our statistics explain it.
Although we don't simply make these kids wait till their parents get their acts together. You can lecture people and you can get change up to a certain point. There are things that are within the control of government about the reform of the schools, about the safety of the streets, about bullying. People talk about getting rid of bad teachers. It's a flip of the real question, which is how to keep good teachers. 50% of all people who enter the profession are gone within 5 years, including a disproportionate number of those who can have other opportunities. We have to create a different atmosphere in the classroom, but as I said, the major thing is to look at the community around it. A public school classroom is a window through which you see problems that arise in other places, and we've got to solve those to solve the school problem.
I've got a window here, too, and it's starting to close on me right now. Real quick, guys, unemployment, 10% in the state, right? Jobs. People need work. What would you do if you guys were governor to create jobs? Quick solutions to create and generate jobs.
What we need to do to create jobs, to me, is simple. I think that we need to reduce taxes, reduce bureaucracy. And let me give you, for example, I started my own law firm last year. Before I made a penny, I had to pay $250 to start an LLC. I had to pay $500 occupational tax to be an attorney in the state of Connecticut. So it was already down almost $1,000 before I even put a shingle up. And that was just to the state of Connecticut. Those are the types of taxes that are necessary that we can do for all small business owners to encourage growth. So I think that's what we need to do, have a better, more better business-friendly environment in Connecticut.
I can tell Corey he'll discover over time that the public has limited sympathy for attorneys, but I hear his complaint. Let me say two things. Number one, you want to pick a sector right now, it's housing. I think it's fabulous that my friend Tim Bannon is going to be going to work for Dan Malloy. And at CHFA he's learned housing, and that's a place where we can leverage private sector investment and make a change in our communities right now.
Okay.
We can create jobs tomorrow and leverage a great deal of private capital by moving in housing.
Well, building housing, real quick.
Absolutely, rehab
because there are no jobs.
Because new construction, rehab,
okay. All right.
And if he's also doing what we talked about before, changing the rules with land use planning and a whole new urban strategy, you'll be doing environmental good. You'll be accomplishing a great deal. You'll be putting those jobs where we need them the most, where the problem is the worst. They'll be getting the help.
I want to change gears real quick. If there was a star in this election statewide, Chris Murphy, real quick thoughts on his ascension, winning his second term now. Some say he's pushing for real quick thoughts on Murphy.
And they certainly made it a lot more dramatic for him. He got a big boost from the fact that everybody thought he was going to lose for the last 72 hours, and it drew attention. I'd put in a word, though, as well for my friend Joe Courtney, whom I think has been a model member of Congress, who's beloved in his district. And I don't know what he's thinking about this, but he's also doing very well.
On the Republican side, is there an emerging player in all this?
Absolutely.
Not too well?
No, actually, I'll help Courtney. I don't seem to be any at all.
Very much so. I think Dick Blumenthal was a tough candidate for anybody to beat, especially for a newcomer like Linda McMahon. I expect to see Linda McMahon around in 2012. I think she'll be a great candidate. I also think that you haven't heard the last of Mark Boughton, the lieutenant governor candidate, who's very popular. The mayor of Danbury, he'll also be around. And Ann Brinkley, who gave Larson a good run on the 1st District, which is a very tough district to win in. I think she's also a newcomer.
All right. You want to bring a shot? We're closing.
I just want to say that if Corey's lucky enough to be in West Palm Beach in 2012, he damn may well bump into Linda McMahon.
All right.
Not on the campaign trail, though.
When we come back, the window's closing, Curry. We'll talk to our political pundits, continue our conversation. Barack Obama, is his administration done for after the waylaying by the Republicans? We'll talk to these guys next. Don't go away.
No.